What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you my stand-up paddleboard setup that I fish out of. I've been doing this for about 2 years. I got this board a couple years ago at Runnings, and I believe it was 300 bucks. It might have been 400. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember, but not real expensive. It's about as expensive as a cheaper kayak. And the reason I got it, I used to take out a canoe right there, and that, well, it worked pretty good. Got that for my birthday when I was like 22, so 8 years ago now. And that thing worked good. I mean, it got around everywhere in these small lakes that have no boat ramp or anything like that. The only reason I didn't like it that much is because it's a lot bigger and heavier to move around. And a lot of times if I was by myself, I had to drag it, and dragging it eventually put a hole in it, so I had to patch that up. But stand-up paddleboard is just lighter, quicker, easier, moves faster with each paddle. And a lot of people ask me at the boat landings or whatever, or out on the water, is it really hard to balance on there? Have you ever fallen off? And no, I have never fallen off of it. It's pretty easy. It's quite stable. You can see it's pretty wide. So if I'm standing on it, my feet and the shoulder width stance are right here. So I got probably 8 inches on each side. You can stand a little bit wider. Sometimes I'll take a wider stance if jet skiers or speedboats or whatever come by. And then there's been times where it's gotten a little sketchy. I got to kind of squat down, lower your center of gravity, take a wider stance. And if that ever happens, you're better off switching the orientation of the board so the front is hitting the waves instead of the sides, because when you're rocking side to side like this, it's easier to get sketchy and maybe fall off of it instead of going face first into them. If you're going face first, then really the only thing that's going to happen is the waves might come over the top of the board, which is no big deal. So I got a couple rod holders here, and I actually put a phone holder on here too, which before I got a GoPro, if I caught any nice fish, I would put my phone in this phone holder. I think it was made for motorcycles, and I just got a Scotty mount here that I somehow jimmy rigged to have this phone holder here. But if I had caught any big fish I needed to take a picture of, I would set the phone in there, I'd put it on video, and I'd switch the screen to be facing like selfie mode or whatever. And then I'd take a video, hold the fish up, and then screenshot my video for pictures of fish. So it worked out okay. I sometimes still do that, even though I got the GoPro video, if I want to get pictures of them. And then I got some Berkeley rod holders here. These things are pretty slick. They actually have like a little rotating lock here, so it's holding my rod here nice and firm. I mean, it's not super firm, but it's definitely not going anywhere on small waves out on small lakes. And then you just pull it back and it opens up here, so then you can reach down, grab it, fish. When you're done, just push it right back down there, and then it self-locks again. I got another one of those over here. I used to have them in the back here where these holes are, and I thought that way they'll be definitely out of my way. But I'm always landing fish off to the side over here anyways, and it's a lot easier to just reach down in front of you and grab a rod like that than it is to reach way back here. And it was so far towards the back of the board that I would almost feel like the front was gonna flip over or something, or it's a lot less sturdy when you're standing back here than when you're standing in the middle of the board. So I had to switch those. I like that spot way better. They're faced off to the front here, that kind of a downward angle, and these are adjustable too, so you can adjust the angle. This is a pretty good angle where they're kind of up, they're out of the way for landing fish off to the side over here, but they're not facing more straight down and sticking out farther, so that if you're fishing and the wind starts blowing you into shore, they're not going to push in and have the rod tips maybe get snapped there. Then there's like some bungee cords here. I got my life jacket tucked in there. I'll put my paddle there when I'm storing the board and carrying the board, and that holds in there just fine. And so these strings will keep it pretty tight, and then when I'm carrying it vertically, this will just kind of rest on here, so it's not going to fall out. And then the other part that I just added about 2 months ago that I really like, I'm surprised I didn't do this sooner, I got a small cooler here. So this is a 28 quart cooler. Works as a storage compartment. So I got my bag in here with all my gear that I use frequently. I got a small anchor, extra pliers, a couple lures, and then my neck gaiter for putting over my neck and face so I don't get sunburned. So that fits in there nicely. You can sit on it, use it as a bench. I'm standing probably 95 to 100% of the time, but once in a while it is nice to be able to sit down on it. And if you sit down on it, you can paddle with it like you would sitting down a kayak. It works great as long as you got to make sure it's kind of in the middle, slightly towards the back when you're sitting on it. You don't want it too far back or too far forward. And then I just screwed on some cheap rod holders on here. I think I got these at Runnings also for like $3 each. They come with a couple screws that you just screw in there. Put them at a little bit of a downward angle. If you're putting them straight up, you might not have enough room to sit down on here because the rods might be hitting your sides here. So this way it just makes them a little bit more out of the way, but again, it's not at such a downward angle that it's going to be hitting stuff if the wind's blowing you around. And I'm usually doing like a side cast like this. So when I'm doing side casts, they're not getting hit. The lure that's swinging back here is not hitting the rods like it would be if they were down. So I really rarely do like an overhand cast like this. But if you're doing a lot of overhand casts, you can always set this back a little bit and then step forward a little bit and you'll have more room to do overhand casts. And then if you want to sit back down on it, you can just move it back up to the board. Is there anything else? I don't really think so. Oh, Pelican, it's a Pelican Flow 116, that's the name of the board. Specifically made for fishing, and I don't think that really matters. The only thing that it's specifically made for fishing, the only thing it had for that was this Scotty rod holder already included, and I put these other rod holders in. So I actually took that rod holder out and just put the phone holder on there, but that's the only thing that made it fishing specific. You can really get any stand-up paddleboard, but I would suggest not one of the cheapo $100 Walmart ones. I would definitely get a little bit longer one, a little bit wider one that's more stable. And this foam foot stuff here is pretty nice for grip, even when it's wet. So you don't want to get one that's really slick, so when you get in water on it, you're going to be slipping. But that's pretty much it for that. I'll show you how I put it in the back of my truck, how I transport it. And then that'll be the end. Got this backpack strap here. So it's just got like or shoulder strap, actually, not backpack. So it's just got a shoulder strap and it's got a couple buckles here. If I can get those separated. So the straps just go around the board, you buckle them, you can throw it over your shoulder and carry it, which makes it a lot easier than just grabbing it by the handle like this and then lifting it up onto one side and dragging it, because the board is long enough to where unless you have really short arms or you're really tall, it'll be dragging on the ground. So it's nice to have the shoulder strap there. And a lot of times I got 4 rods in here, so that's pretty much the max you would ever need. I think stand-up paddleboard fishing is 4 rods, and really you could get by with doing 1, but I can't make up my mind on what I want to use, so I always break 4. But you can also put a net in the rod holder here, which is pretty slick. Just set it in there, it's out of the way, you can just turn around and grab it when you need it. So I think that's going to be it for this, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully if you want to get into stand-up paddleboard fishing, I gave you some ideas on how to set this up, and your learning curve will be faster than mine. And that's a great way to get out on small bodies of water that don't get fished very much. It's fairly cheap, it's lightweight, it's easy to maneuver around. The only downside is the wind. It kind of gets carried pretty easily. So on small lakes, you don't really have to worry about that too much usually. But yeah, if you're on a bigger lake or there's higher winds out there, you got to be careful. So one last thing, guys, it does have a fin on the bottom of here. So this is removable with some screws. It is really nice to have on there because it does make it track in the wind a lot better, or when you're paddling, it kind of keeps the water I don't know I don't know exactly how it works, but it keeps the board tracking well when you're paddling. It does sometimes. If you're paddling something like that and there's no fin each paddle, you'll kind of go forward and sideways, then kind of forward and sideways like that. That's a little exaggerated, but you get the point. You paddle on one side and there's not a fin in the back to make the tracking better. You go more so side to side than you would with a fin on there. So the fin is really nice to have. The only thing is you got to make sure you're not setting it down on the fin and warping that fin. Like Shamu, you don't want to get that warped fin because then it won't track right. And I could see if you're really doing a lot of lily pad fishing or frog fishing or fishing in a lake that's really super weedy, taking the fin off, because once in a while it does get caught up a little bit, and if you just paddle a little harder it breaks free pretty easily. It still gets through weeds really super good, but that fin, taking that fin off would make it just a little bit easier to get through thick weeds, but then you're sacrificing the tracking ability. So it's kind of up to you. I keep it on all the time. It still gets through lily pads and thick weeds just fine, but once in a while you do feel that it gets stuck and you just have to break through, but not a big deal. I think it's definitely worth having it on. A little bright out, but you can see the paddleboard just sits right in the back of my truck like that. Just got a bungee cord on each side just clipped on the back handle here. It works pretty slick, just holds it in place really easily, really quick to put in. Sticks out about 3 feet past the tailgate, but it's not a big deal. There's one. Yes. On the 10.5-inch Mightee Worm, and he's not even that big. Good job, buddy. Sucking that whole thing into the top, unless you ate it head first. Big baits and halfway decent sized fish. Definitely not a bad bass, but he's not really big. Oh man, ripped my Mightee Worm in half there almost. That's probably good for one more fish. Northern. Not a very big one on the bluegill swim bait. This is right around the territory where I saw the big one the other day, so. One that looked to be about 4 times the size of this one. All right, little buddy. Look at him just behaving for takeoff. Here we go. Decent little northern. Slimy bastard.